Welcome back to the Bad Influence podcast where we don't shy away from the uncomfortable truths. Today, we're diving into a topic that's incredibly personal for me and might just hit home for many of you: awkwardness and empathy. If you've ever felt like the odd one out in social situations, unsure of how to act, how to fit in, or just feeling anxious about saying the wrong thing, I'm here to tell you you're not alone. And guess what? Your awkwardness might actually be one of your greatest strengths. Let me explain. People label awkward for whatever reason feel like they have no choice but to stay quiet. But here's the thing about socially awkward people: we're often hyper aware of what's happening around us. We might feel out of place, unsure of how to act, and yes, it can be incredibly uncomfortable. But that same awkwardness often comes with a superpower, a heightened sense of empathy. Because we feel so out of fucking place at times, we become more in tune with the feelings of others. We know what it feels like to be shy, to be feeling out of place, to feel awkward. So we observe more, we listen more deeply, and because of that, we can build relationships that are deeper and more meaningful than you might expect. So today I'm going to break down how awkwardness and empathy go hand in hand. I'll share my own journey of overcoming the fear of judgment and rejection and how I've used my social awkwardness to build a strong, authentic connections. Which, based on everything that's happening in the world, I think this is one of the biggest things that we need right now. And if you've ever felt socially awkward, I'm going to show you how you can leverage the high empathy to build relationships that truly matter. So, are you ready to turn that awkwardness into your biggest strength? Let's go. So, here's the problem: when you're socially awkward, it's easy to get caught up in your own head. You're constantly worrying about what people think of you. Am I saying the right thing? Do they think I'm weird? Should I even speak up? Should I call out the bullshit that I'm hearing? This constant internal dialogue can hold you back. It makes you fucking anxious, hesitant, and afraid of putting yourself out there. And because of that, you miss on opportunities to build real, meaningful connections and relationships. But here's the truth: that awkwardness you're feeling, it's not a flaw. It's not something you need to fix. In fact, it's a sign that you're highly attuned to what's happening around you. Because you're so aware of social dynamics, you're probably more empathetic than you realize. You pick up on the small things: body language, tone of voice, subtle expressions that others might miss. And that gives you a unique advantage in building connections. Now, I'm not saying that being socially awkward is easy. It's not. I know firsthand how frustrating and isolating it can feel. But what I've learned, and this is what I want to share with you, is that if you lean into that empathy, if you use it as a tool, you can create relationships that go beyond the surface. You can become the kind of person who truly understands others, and that's something powerful. So let's get into how you can make that shift, which is the most important shift that you're going to have to make in your life. For me, this all started to click after I married my wife. Like I've said before and multiple times, that was the moment that changed everything for me. Before that, I struggled with my awkwardness. I always felt like I had to tone myself down to fit in, to not stand out. But with my wife, I realized that my awkwardness was actually a strength. It helped me observe her deeply and understand her emotions in a way that even she couldn't put into words. When my wife was battling depression at her worst, like the worst part of depression, like almost taking the final step, like suicidal, we're talking about that. I noticed things that no one else did. I could see the small changes in her body language, the shift in her tone of voice, the way her energy dropped when she was feeling low. And because I'm such a fucking observer, I was able to step in and support her in ways that made a real difference. I wasn't just talking at her. I was listening deeply, reading her emotional cues, and showing up in the way she needed. That's how I built a deeper connection with her. That experience made me realize that being socially awkward actually made me more empathetic. Because I spent so much time feeling out of place, I became hyper aware of how others were feeling too. I didn't want them to feel the way I did, so I listened more carefully, observed more closely, and tried to understand what they were going through. And that's something that goes way beyond small talks or surface level conversations. It's about building real, authentic relationships. Once I realized that, everything fucking changed. I stopped seeing my awkwardness as a weakness and started to see it as a tool. Because it is a tool. You don't have to fight against your awkwardness or try to fit into a mold that wasn't made for you. Instead, lean into your empathy, use your observation skills, and build relationships that matter. Because trust me, the world needs more people who listen deeply and care about how others feel. So, how do you actually do this? How do you turn your social awkwardness into a strength? The first step is learning how to observe. Now, if you're socially awkward like me, you're probably already doing this without even realizing it. You're noticing things, the way someone fidgets when they're nervous, the way their eyes light up when they're excited, or the way their shoulders slump when they're upset. These are all cues that give you insight into how they're feeling. Once you have observed these cues, the next step is to listen deeply. And I mean really listen. Don't just wait for your turn to speak. Take in what they're saying and ask questions that show you're genuinely interested. Sometimes people just need to feel heard. I learned that with my wife. And your ability to listen deeply can make them feel understood in a way that most people can't. This is where your empathy comes into play. One technique that I've used is something called active listening. It's simple but powerful. When someone's talking, paraphrase what they're saying back to them to make sure you understand. For example, you could say, "So what I'm hearing is that you're feeling overwhelmed by work right now. Is that right?" This shows that you're not just nodding along. You're actually processing what they're saying and reflecting it back to them. That's what makes people feel truly heard. Probably you have seen this in your relationships with your parents, sister, brother, whatever, where they say like, "You're not listening to me," and you're like, "I'm listening to you," but they don't feel heard. So you can try this and that will change everything. Don't be afraid to ask more questions. If something isn't clear, ask for clarification. It's okay to say, "I want to understand what you're going through better. Can you tell me more about that?" People appreciate when you take the time to really get what they're saying. And once they feel understood, that's when the real connection happens. And again, and I'm going to say this multiple times probably throughout the episodes, this is what we need right now. Now, let's talk about some practical steps you can take to start leveraging your awkwardness and empathy in social situations. First, embrace the fact that you're an observer. Don't feel like you have to jump into every conversation right away. Take a moment to observe the dynamics in the room. Who's leading the conversation? Who seems a little quiet or uncomfortable? By picking up on these cues, you'll know how to approach people in a way that feels natural. You won't come off as aggressive or anything like that when you have an idea of how they're feeling. Second, use your deep listening skills to create authentic connections. When you engage in conversations, focus on making the other person feel heard. Don't worry about whether you're saying the right thing. Instead, focus on understanding them. That's what makes the difference. Ask questions, paraphrase, and show genuine interest in what they're saying. Trust me, this is where your awkwardness becomes a strength because you care enough to listen deeply, and the other person will see that and will feel it too, and that's important. Third, don't be afraid to embrace your awkwardness. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but here's the thing. People are drawn to fucking authenticity. When you stop trying to fit into a mold and just be yourself, people will respect that. Your awkwardness is what makes you unique, and it's what gives you the heightened sense of empathy. So don't hide it. Lean into it. Let go of the fear of judgment. This is a big one. Everybody is afraid of being judged. I know it's hard because as socially awkward individuals, we're often highly sensitive to how others perceive us. But we need to stop doing that because it's not good for us. It's not good for you. It's not good for me. It's not good for anyone. But here's the truth. Most people are so caught up in their own insecurities that they're not paying as much attention as you think. They don't care what you're doing. They don't care what you're doing. They're so caught up in whatever's going on in their mind that they don't care about the way you dress. They don't care about the way you talk. That's something that you just created in your mind. So give yourself permission to show up as you are, awkwardness and all, and focus on building real connections with the people who matter. And you might be thinking, okay, Jordan, this all sounds great, but I'm still scared of being judged. And I get it. I've been there. And I know how it feels. But let me tell you something. The more you show up as your authentic, awkward self, the more you'll realize that people appreciate you for who you are. You don't have to be the smooth talker or the life of the party to build meaningful relationships. You just have to care. And trust me, that's something socially awkward people are great at. We care so much about others that sometimes it's scary. One thing that helped me overcome the fear of judgment was realizing that my awkwardness made me more sensitive to other people's emotions. Instead of seeing that as a weakness, I started to see it as a strength. I began using my empathy to support others, like my wife and some of my friends and my clients, to listen when they needed to talk and to offer advice when they asked for it. And in return, I built deeper, more meaningful connections than I ever thought possible. So here's my challenge for you. Oh yes, I'm going to fucking challenge you. The next time you find yourself in a social situation, don't shy away from your awkwardness. Embrace it. Use your observation skills to read the room, to listen deeply to the people you're talking to, and focus on building a connection rather than fitting in. I promise you, when you start showing up as your true self, awkwardness and all, you'll find that people are drawn to your authenticity. And remember, empathy, it's your superpower. Use it. Lean into it. The world needs more people who care enough to listen deeply and build real connections. Right now, we're in a loneliness pandemic. A lot of people are feeling lonely. Men in particular, women, kids, everybody. So they need someone like you that is willing to listen deeply, to understand them, to let them feel heard in order to combat that fucking loneliness. So stop worrying about being judged and start focusing on the people who matter. The ones who will appreciate you for exactly who you are. Listen, being socially awkward isn't a curse. It's not something you have to fix. In fact, it's one of your greatest strengths. Your ability to observe, to listen, and to empathize is what sets you apart. It's what allows you to build deeper, more meaningful relationships than most people ever will. So stop fighting against it and start using it. The next time you feel that awkwardness is creeping in, take a deep breath and remind yourself that it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to say all the right things, because I fuck up a lot. And it's okay to fuck up. You just have to be present, listen deeply, and care about the person in front of you. That's how you turn your awkwardness into a superpower. That's how people get drawn to you, because they're gonna see that you have a different perspective and that you're willing to share it and that they might learn something from you. That's how I helped my wife with her depression, to feel heard, to feel like I was there for her when she was at her worst, when it came to her depression after she got sick and her mental breakdown and everything that we have gone through. It helped me help her. And this might help you help someone that needs it right now. Especially, like I mentioned, with this fucking loneliness epidemic that we're suffering right now. And that's why I have talked about this so much, because this is what we need. We need people that embrace their awkwardness, that are willing to listen deeply, that are willing to observe, that are willing to literally just be themselves so others can be themselves and talk about their problems. Because there are so many motherfuckers out there that say like, bottle it all up. You don't have to talk about your issues. You're a man. You're a woman. You're an adult. Fit in. No, we don't need that right now. Everybody's trying to fit in and it's a fucking crowded spot. So don't fit in. Just be yourself. Awkwardness and all. And connect with the people that need you right now. You will see. You will find that people. You will find those people. You will see that people need you right now to listen deeply so they can actually overcome some of the challenges that they're actually facing right now. That's why they need you. Because you can lead them. You can help them get out of that dark hole that they're in right now. And that's why you need to embrace your awkwardness. You need to embrace your empathy. Empathy is not a weakness. You need empathy. You need empathy right now. You need to embrace it. The world needs empathy. And when you start to embrace it, you will create the connections that you need in order for you to move forward in life. You're going to be able to change your life because of the connections that you have forged. And you will enjoy this ride just like I have. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining me today on the Bad Influence Podcast. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's start embracing our awkwardness, leveraging our empathy, and building relationships that truly matter. And stay true to yourself, keep pushing forward, and remember, awkwardness is not a weakness. It's your strength. Until next time, have a great day.